Apti Alaudinov, here we are meeting in the forests of the Kursk region. The Akhmat special forces are now here. How is the situation?
Marian, well, hello. You see, when you say we've met in the forests, it's quite a specific and interesting theme. On our native territory, in our forests, yes, of course, we didn't expect that we would meet so deep from the actual front line, that we would be meeting and talking about the enemy being not far from this place. However it may be, the fact remains that we are here today as units that are driving the enemy out of our territory.
How difficult is it overall? Because I know that mobile groups are working.
Well, it's hard, you know. The situation itself is tough. Probably because when you're working in an area that is already known to be your own, where you know that somewhere there are grandmothers and grandfathers, it's one thing when no one is there, and these territories are already populated by the enemy, and we are purely engaged in driving them out. It's tough because indeed every post, every tree is your own, and no matter what anyone says, this heaviness comes from the fact that the civilian population has suffered greatly. Feeling and realizing this is very difficult.
What is the Akhmat Special Forces? Who are these people?
Oh, the Akhmat Special Forces. This is probably the most international unit that exists. I can say this without false pride, that these are guys who are volunteers, who are patriots. Each of them I consider a hero because they really tore themselves away from their homes, loved ones, and left everything. Tore themselves away from their sofas and went to fight, to defend their homeland, to protect the interests that have been given to us by God. And no matter what anyone says, it would be hard to find a more combat-ready unit than the Akhmat Special Forces today. This group, which has gathered from all corners of Russia, and not just Russia, from all corners of the former Soviet Union, includes guys of different nationalities. And it turns out that this group has united based on our common idea, our ideology. We all strive for God. We all try to preserve those values that God has saved for us, family and universal human values. And it turns out that this group has united because we have a common goal and a common future. We are all striving for this together. Probably today it would be difficult to find such a group that has come together in such a way, knowing what it is striving for and what it wants. I am very pleased to have fighters of different nationalities from all corners of Russia and the world. And it's nice to understand that these are fighters who go all the way, stand to the death, and never give up positions. Because of this, our unit is very famous not only in Russia but all over the world.
I know that before the Special Military Operation, SMO, you were supposed to peacefully retire, and it seems you even did. But you couldn't sit peacefully at home.
Well, this is a very interesting story. After spending many years as a person with a gun, in 2021 I retired. I moved to Moscow. One of my friends arranged for me to become the vice president of a fund. I lived, as they say, a normal life as a pensioner. I had somewhere to live, as they say, a salary. I didn't need anything. Everything was fine. But one evening, after the start of the SMO, I called home in the Republic, asking how things were. And they told me that they brought the bodies of fallen guys and named 3 settlements. They said that the guys from there had died and that there were funerals going on. Well, the thing is, I probably couldn't live at home, sitting peacefully, while guys were dying in my country. And there were some global processes happening that could indeed change not only Russia, but the whole world. So that evening I made a decision. I told the guys who were with me there that I was going to the SMO. I said, that's it, we're getting ready. And in one night, we packed everything up. That same night, I wrote an application and immediately sent it to my supervisor. In one night, the decision was made, I packed all my things, and in the morning, we were already on the road back to Chechnya. I arrived home, wrote to Ramzan Akhmatovich that I wanted to go to the SMO. He, as they say, asked me to support the guys directly and gave me a direction. I said, okay, please lead the unit. It just happened that these were the first volunteers who went to the SMO from the territory of the Chechen Republic. Through the Russian Special Forces, they entered. So I was among the first volunteers, and that's how my retirement life ended.
Isn't it typical for you to fight against bandits? You've been doing this your whole life, fighting for justice. But now you're basically doing the same thing, just perhaps on a more serious scale.
Well, Marion, for me, the war actually started on October 19th, 1994. It was on that day that I engaged in my first battle against Dudayev, Maskadov, and Basayev, and my father and my older brother were killed. It happened that we lost my father and brother that day, and that was it. My whole life from then on was dedicated to fighting this evil, terrorists, fascists, whatever you want to call them, Wahhabis. So, of course, nothing new is happening for me here. It's a continuation of this story of fighting evil. Indeed, the war has changed a lot. The forms and methods of conducting military operations have changed. There's a lot more technology being used during combat, especially drones. This has completely changed the principles of conducting military operations. But factually, no matter how it is, if you have a common foundation for understanding what you need to do, there's nothing new for you other than the technical equipment and means.
I know you come face to face with the enemy. We even recently captured fighters who had captured both our guys and usually civilian residents. You are a person who knows how to communicate. You probably have some traits, perhaps thanks to your profession or some human factors. Do you feel, understand, and know how to communicate with such people, if they can even be called that? What did you experience while communicating with them when they ended up in your captivity, and what did they actually say?
Marion, the strangest thing for me is that I truly respect Ukrainians as a nation. I love Ukrainians. I don't hide it. I've been saying this since the first days of the Special Military Operation, SMO. I feel very sorry for the Ukrainians because I used to know them well, having lived on the territory of Ukraine for several months. I will say that I got to know them as very kind people. Of course, it is strange for me to see how they could have changed so much over these 30 years, whether they stood on their heads or turned upside down. They have changed so drastically. At the same time, as a person with a degree in political science and having studied a lot of material and published many articles on this aspect, I can say that the influence of the West, those institutions aimed at turning Ukrainians into enemies of the residents of Russia, has done its job. Today, a large part of them is fighting against Russia, although when they get captured, they all say that they are cooks, that they didn't want to fight. Yet, again, I note that we see thousands of videos on the internet where these fighters are beaten, caught like wild, stray dogs, and thrown into the front lines. When you communicate with them, it can sometimes be very hard to accept what they say. Because on the one hand, there's this internal struggle, understanding that literally 5 minutes ago, he shot at you with an automatic rifle. If he had succeeded, he would have killed you. On the other hand, there's the realization that he was caught like some stray dog, beaten, forced to take up arms and sent forward, being told that if he surrenders, they will cut him into pieces. It's very difficult to reconcile all this within yourself and come to the conclusion of how you would behave in his place. These people are pushed to the brink of survival. The Ukrainian nation is on the brink of survival. Initially, when the SMO began, I remember that the Americans, who essentially stirred up this mess, stated that they would fight to the last Ukrainian. Today, we see that they are indeed trying to fight to the last Ukrainian. To understand the heaviness of this state of the people, to realize how hard it is for Ukrainian women, mothers, children, and wives, whatever anyone says, it's not even certain what we would do if we were in their place. It's very difficult to accept all this. I still want to do everything possible to ensure that they survive. As a person who has spent 29 years with a gun, I still try to do everything to preserve the lives of our captives. It is very difficult to extract them from the front lines because the enemy does everything to prevent any of them from getting to us alive. If they see someone surrendering, all their weapons are sometimes aimed at that person to kill him so that he doesn't reach us. This realization is overwhelming. Even in this case, we remain much more humane and try to preserve the lives of these Ukrainian fighters so that they can someday return home and tell their children, their families, and those around them about the difference between us and them. I can only formulate my daily state of mind this way in relation to these captives. Daily communication with our fighters, who sometimes have something explode inside them and they want to kill them all. Then you explain to them, guys, if we do that, who will we be? We will be just like them. You have to endure, to come to God inside yourself, to avoid becoming like them. This daily struggle on the front line, within yourself, in your unit. You have to fight. Perhaps even when you sleep, you are still fighting against this Satanism.
What does victory mean to you? Where is it? On what conditions?
Well, here the question is very specific. I generally approach everything this way. We are not fighting for a piece of land. Many people think that we need to seize some territory in order to achieve victory. No, our victory lies in all its meanings. It's about repelling this invasion of the army of the Antichrist Dajjal, which is aimed at Russia and the Russian people in order to break us, to put us on our knees, to seize the territory of Russia, to seize the souls that exist in Russia today, souls that strive for God. I believe that our war was initially described in all sacred texts. And in relation to everything that is happening today, I approach it only from the position of religion, only from my faith in God, only from the perspective of sacred writings. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't even be here. I believe our victory is to give a worthy rebuff to the army of the Antichrist Dajjal, to make it clear that we are not their equals. And of course, to give hope to those people who sit behind us, the majority of people who sit on the fence, so that they finally descend from that fence and take the right side. Even those states that are still sitting on the fence, which seemingly support Russia internally, but are afraid to voice it, afraid to support Russia, I believe that if we manage to pull the healthy part of humanity, of the planet that remains with God, to our side, it will be our main victory. Not territory, not some city, not some settlement, not some goods that someone supposedly talks about. Russia is the richest state. We do not need anyone's territories. We have no need for land. We have so much land that we don't even know where to put it. We, as a state, do not even have time to fully utilize our own territory and the resources of that territory. It is clear that the principles and ideas originally laid down in this SMO did not concern any earthly goods at all. Therefore, I believe our victory is the victory of our souls over the Satanism that is actually looming over us. This is the most important thing, and where this point will be placed, at what coordinate on our map, doesn't matter at all. The victory of our souls is the main thing.